When my mom boarded her flight to Europe, she didn't even look back. She left me, an 11-year-old child, with $2, a half-empty fridge and a locked bedroom I wasn't allowed to enter. She said she deserved a break, and I'd figure things out. But what she didn't know was that this month would change everything. Because when she finally returned, dragging her suitcases through the doorway, expecting the same helpless kid she'd abandoned, she froze. Her face went pale. And the first words out of her mouth were, "No, this can't be happening. Stay with us. This story will leave you speechless." Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. I still remember the sound of her suitcase wheels dragging across the hardwood floor. It was the sound that told me, before she even spoke, that something was wrong. My mom never packed lightly, never moved quietly, and definitely never left without warning. But that morning, she didn't even glance at me as she zipped up her final bag. "I'm going to Europe for a month," she said casually, as if she were announcing she was stepping out to buy milk. I stared at her, waiting for the joke, the smile, the explanation. Instead, she pressed a single crumpled $2 bill into my palm. "That should cover anything you need," she added. "Don't make a mess while I'm gone." My throat tightened. "Mom, what am I supposed to eat?" "There's cereal," she replied, waving vaguely toward the kitchen. I knew there wasn't. I'd checked the night before, only a half-empty carton of milk and an apple turning brown on the counter. But she didn't look up from her phone long enough to notice my silence. I followed her to the doorway, unsure whether to protest or cry. She paused only once, right in front of her bedroom. She reached into her purse, pulled out a small silver key, and locked the door behind her with a quick, practiced motion. I'd never seen her lock it before. "Don't go in there," she said firmly. "I don't even have the key," I whispered. "Good." Something about the way she said it, cold, sharp, final, made my stomach twist. The door didn't look like a normal bedroom door anymore. It looked like a boundary. Secret. A warning. She lifted her suitcase, swung the strap of her expensive purse over her shoulder, and walked toward the waiting taxi. She didn't hug me. She didn't tell me to be safe. She didn't even check if I had enough food, electricity, or anyone to call. She just left. The door closed. The taxi engine started. And suddenly the house, our old creaking house that always felt too small when she was home, felt impossibly huge. Silent. Empty. I stood there with $2 in my hand, 11 years old, staring at the locked bedroom door, and realizing for the first time that I was completely, terrifyingly alone. The first night alone didn't feel real. I kept expecting to hear my mom's heels clicking across the hallway, her voice echoing through the house, or even one of her irritated sighs when she realized I hadn't done the chores perfectly. But the house stayed silent, like it was holding its breath, waiting for me to understand that she wasn't coming back tomorrow, or the next day, or the next 30 after that. By evening, my stomach was growling so loudly it sounded like an angry animal trapped inside me. I checked the fridge again, hoping something might magically appear. But no, just the same half-empty carton of milk and that sad, bruised apple. I held the apple in my hands for a long moment, then put it back. I wanted to save it. Save everything. I didn't know how long I'd need to stretch the nothingness. That night, every small noise terrified me. The creak of the floorboards. The rattle of the window during the wind. Even the old water heater groaning sounded like a stranger walking through the house. I curled up on the couch instead of my bed, turning on the TV not to watch anything but to drown out the silence. I didn't sleep. By the second morning, the hunger hit harder. I poured the last splash of milk into a glass, took one sip and forced myself to drink the rest slowly, pretending it was enough. My head felt light. My hands shaky. I kept thinking about school, the kids who always had packed lunches, the cafeteria smells, the sound of coins clinking in vending machines. I wondered what it felt like not to think about food every minute. With nothing else to do, I walked through the house, checking every cabinet. Nothing. I opened drawers. Empty. I even looked in the trash, ashamed of myself even as I did it, but there was nothing there either. My mom always made me take it out before it filled. The second night was worse than the first. Hunger made everything louder, sharper. Every sound felt like a threat. I kept glancing toward my mom's locked bedroom door, the silver knob shining faintly in the hallway light. Part of me felt drawn to it. Not because I wanted to invade her privacy, but because I was starting to believe that surviving the next few weeks depended on whatever secrets she kept inside. But I didn't dare touch it. Not yet. It happened on the third night, right when the storm rolled in. The windows shook with every crash of thunder, and the wind howled through the cracks like something alive. I sat on the couch hugging my knees, trying to pretend I wasn't scared, when a sudden violent gust slammed the hallway door shut. The sound made me jump so hard I dropped the cup I was holding. It skidded across the floor, hitting the base of my mom's locked bedroom door. And then I heard it. A tiny metallic shift so soft I almost thought I imagined it. I reached for the doorknob, heart pounding in my throat. It felt loose, looser than before. Another rumble of thunder vibrated through the walls, and the latch wiggled again as if the storm had jarred it free. I don't know what came over me. Hunger, curiosity, desperation, maybe a mix of all three. But that night fear didn't stop me. Hunger pushed me forward. I turned the knob. The door opened. Not wide, just an inch at first. But it was enough for the smell to hit me. Not perfume. Not laundry detergent. Something else. Something I'd never expected. Paper. Old dusty paper. I pushed the door open slowly. For a moment, the lightning illuminated everything in a harsh blue flash, freezing the room in place like a photograph. I stepped inside. Her bedroom was nothing like I imagined. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't messy. It wasn't even normal. It looked staged. The bed was perfectly made, blankets tight. The nightstands were empty. The closet door was shut, but the floor in front of it had a line of dust, like it hadn't been opened in months. The room felt cold, untouched, like no one had slept in it for a long time. But then I noticed the stack of boxes in the corner. Plain brown boxes. No labels. No handwriting. Just stacked neatly, perfectly, almost nervously. One box sat slightly apart from the rest. I don't know why, but I knelt beside that one. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside were envelopes. Dozens of them. Thick, rubber-banded envelopes stuffed with cash. More money than I had ever seen in my life. And on top of the stack was a single sheet of paper. A note. My mom's handwriting, sharp and familiar. For the plan, do not touch. For the first time since she left, I realized she wasn't just careless. She was hiding something. Something big. After discovering the boxes of money, I wanted to take it all, run to the nearest store and eat until my stomach stopped hurting. But something inside me, fear maybe or instinct, stopped me. That note my mom left, for the plan, felt like a warning carved into stone. Whatever she was planning, whatever that money meant, I knew one thing. If I touched it, there would be consequences. And I wasn't ready to face them. So I closed the box, backed out of the room, and shut the door just as the storm quieted. The next morning, hunger woke me before the sun did. My head throbbed and my legs felt heavy, but I forced myself to stand. If I didn't learn to take care of myself, nobody would. That day I created a routine. My first real one without my mom. I checked the fridge again, swallowing the disappointment the same way I swallowed my fear. I filled a pot with water and boiled it, pretending it was soup. Drinking hot water made me feel full, at least for a little while. Then I cleaned the house. Not because I wanted to, but because a clean house felt less lonely. I swept the floors, wiped the counters, opened windows to let in air even though it made the house cold. I washed my clothes in the sink, scrubbing them with leftover dish soap, hanging them near the heater to dry. I found a half-broken flashlight in a drawer and fixed it using tape and a paperclip. It made me feel capable, almost proud. Like maybe I wasn't just surviving, I was learning. By the end of the first week, I mastered small things most kids my age never had to think about. I rationed food. I boiled water before drinking it. I learned to stretch every crumb, every ounce of energy. I even made a little schedule for myself, writing it on a scrap of cardboard. Wake up. Boil water. Clean. Look for food. Stay quiet. Don't draw attention. Stay alive. At night, I read old magazines just to distract myself from the hunger. Some nights, I talked to the house as if it could hear me. Other nights, I sat near my mom's locked door, wondering what the plan meant and why she needed so much money. But I didn't cry. Not once. Because if I cried, I knew I might fall apart. And falling apart wasn't an option. Not when I was the only person keeping myself alive. It was on the 9th day, when my legs felt weak from hunger and my throat burned from drinking nothing but boiled water, that I first saw her. The woman stood across the street from our house, still as a statue, hands tucked into the pockets of a long dark coat. At first I thought she was just a neighbor walking her dog, but she had no dog. No bag. No phone. She was simply watching. Watching me. I froze. My heart thudded painfully. I didn't know whether to run back inside or pretend I hadn't noticed her. Something about her posture, rigid, alert, felt wrong. Dangerous even. But then she lifted a hand, not to wave but to beckon me forward. I shook my head immediately. She stepped off the curb. Before panic could swallow me, I darted back inside the house and locked the door. I hid behind the curtains, peeking out just enough to see her walk slowly up our driveway. Not hurried. Not threatening. Just deliberate. Then she stopped right at our front gate. 11 years old, she whispered loudly enough for me to hear through the thin glass. Alone. She shouldn't have done this. My breath caught. How did she know my age? And what did she mean she shouldn't have done this? The woman stayed there for a long moment, scanning the house with eyes that looked both fierce and broken. A storm of emotions crossed her face. Anger, regret, something else I couldn't name. Then she said it again, this time softer, like she was saying it to herself. She shouldn't have left you like this. Not again. I felt my stomach drop. Before I could make sense of her words, she reached into her coat and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. She placed it carefully on the gate latch and stepped back. I can't stay, she said. But you're stronger than she believes. And soon, the truth will come to you. I wanted to ask who she was, how she knew my mom, why she sounded like she was carrying a secret too heavy for one person. But fear glued my feet to the floor. I didn't dare move. She turned away and walked down the street without looking back. Once she disappeared around the corner, I crept outside, scanning the road for any sign of her. Nothing. Just wind blowing dried leaves across the pavement. Hands trembling, I picked up the note. It wasn't long, only one line, written in hurried slanted ink. When she returns, do not believe the first thing she tells you. My mouth went dry. What was my mom going to say? And why did this stranger look at me as if she already knew the answer? The note shook in my hands as I folded it back up. For the first time since my mom left, I felt something stronger than hunger. I felt fear. Real fear. By the time the second week crawled in, my body felt like it was running on fumes. I moved slowly, thought slowly, even breathed slowly. But I still went to school every day. It was the only place where I could sit in warmth for a few hours and forget the sound of my own growling stomach. But even at school I couldn't hide everything. My clothes hung looser than usual. My eyes felt heavy. And I kept catching myself staring at other kids' lunches like I was studying rare artwork. I didn't steal anything, not even when kids threw away half-eaten sandwiches, but I watched them with a longing that must have been obvious. Too obvious. Because on Wednesday afternoon my homeroom teacher, Mrs. Carter, pulled me aside after class. She was the kind of teacher who noticed everything. Late homework, trembling hands, even silent sadness. Her eyes followed me with a look that made my chest tighten. Stay for a moment, she said gently. I want to talk to you. I nodded, heart pounding. Teachers weren't supposed to notice. They weren't supposed to ask questions I couldn't answer. I sat at one of the front desks while she graded papers quietly, giving me space to breathe. After a minute she set her pen down and turned her full attention to me. You haven't been yourself lately, she said. Are you feeling all right? I forced a nod. Just tired. Tired, she repeated softly, studying my face. Have you been eating? You look pale. My stomach twisted. I looked down at my shoes. I eat, I lied. Just not hungry sometimes. Her brow furrowed. Is everything okay at home? Your mom hasn't been answering the school's calls. Panic flared inside me so fast it felt like a punch to the ribs. She found out I was alone. Truly alone. Someone would call social services. I'd be taken away. Foster care. Strangers. New school. No control over anything. I couldn't let that happen. My mom's fine, I blurted. She's just busy. Work trip. She'll be back soon. Why? Another one. I hated how easily it came out. Mrs. Carter hesitated. I could tell she didn't believe me, not fully. But she also didn't want to push too hard, not yet. If you ever need anything, she said, her voice softening, food, help, someone to talk to, you can come to me. No judgment. I nodded again, forcing a smile I didn't feel. Thank you. But as I walked home that day, the fear grew heavier. Adults were beginning to notice. People were starting to see the cracks. And I knew, if I wasn't careful, everything would collapse before my mom even returned. The turning point came on a Saturday morning when the hunger got so sharp it felt like it might split me open. I had searched every corner of the kitchen so many times I could map it blindfolded. Still nothing. No forgotten crackers, no hidden cans, not even crumbs at the bottom of the bread box. So I stepped outside. Not because I had a plan. Not because I thought I could magically fix my life. But because sitting in that silent house any longer felt like drowning. I wandered down the street kicking a loose rock when I saw two kids crying over a broken toy truck. The front wheel had snapped off and they were arguing about whose fault it was. I stopped a few feet away watching until the smaller one noticed me. "Can you fix it?" he asked. I almost said no. I was tired, hungry, and barely holding myself together. But something about the way he looked at me, hopeful and desperate, made me kneel beside the toy. The wheel had popped from its hinge. The plastic wasn't actually cracked. Using a small stick from the ground and a bit of pressure, I managed to slide the wheel back into place. The truck rolled smoothly again. The kids gasped. The smaller boy reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled dollar bill. "Here," he said. "Dad says you pay people who fix things." My chest tightened. A whole $1. Half of everything I had. I tried to hand it back, but he shoved it into my palm and ran off before I could argue. That single moment lit a spark. By evening, I found myself scanning the neighborhood for anything else I could fix. A bent bicycle chain. A loose mailbox hinge. A garden hose missing a washer. I didn't ask for payment. People insisted on it. Some gave me coins. Others gave me snacks. One elderly woman handed me a sandwich wrapped in foil and said, "You have good hands, kid." I nearly cried when I tasted the bread. Over the next few days, neighbors began recognizing me. "The handy kid," they called me. "Smart little guy. Knows how to fix anything." I didn't correct them. I didn't explain my situation. I just nodded and kept working. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than fear. I felt useful. Capable. Alive. The money I earned, small coins, a few bills, went into a jar under my bed. The food I received kept me standing. And little by little I began to realize something important. My mom had left me with $2. But I didn't have to stay at $2. I could build something of my own. By the third week the house no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a puzzle. Every corner seemed to hide something I hadn't noticed before. Every drawer, every closet, every shadow felt suspicious after discovering the boxes of cash. And no matter how many chores I did or how many things I fixed around the neighborhood, my eyes always drifted back to my mom's locked room. The first time I entered had been an accident. The second time was a decision. It was late evening. The sun was dipping behind the houses, casting long orange beams through the hallway windows. I told myself I was just checking if the storm had loosened the latch again, but the truth was simpler. I needed answers. The room felt colder than the rest of the house, as if the air there had been trapped for months. Dust floated in thin streaks of light. The bed remained perfectly made, untouched. I walked toward the boxes again, but something else pulled my attention. The corner of the rug was curled upward. Just barely. Almost invisible. But enough. I knelt and lifted the edge. Beneath the rug was a loose floorboard, one I had never noticed before. My heart stuttered. I pulled at it and with a soft creak, it lifted, revealing a narrow space just big enough to hide something flat. Inside was a single yellowed envelope. My name wasn't on it. No name was. Just a date. A date from 6 years ago. My hands trembled as I slid the letter out. The paper was thin, worn at the edges as if someone had read it over and over again. The handwriting wasn't my mother's. It was softer. Rounder. Almost gentle. The first line made my breath catch. "You promised I would get to see him." Him. Me. I read further, eyes moving quickly though my mind felt slow, heavy, afraid. "You can't erase me from his life. He deserves to know who I am. You can't keep hiding the truth forever." My heart hammered against my ribs. The letter ended abruptly with no signature. Whoever wrote it hadn't even finished the last sentence. My mind raced. Who was this person? What truth had my mother been hiding? Why was this letter hidden beneath her floor, tucked away like a dangerous secret. And then, the most chilling thought of all. Why did she never want me to find it? I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope, but I didn't return it to the hiding spot. Not this time. Some secrets were meant to stay buried. But this one felt like the beginning of everything my mother didn't want me to know. By the 4th week, something inside me had shifted. It didn't happen all at once. It was slow, like watching sunlight creep across a room in the morning, barely noticing the change until everything looks different. At first I was just surviving. Then I was learning. Well, I was becoming someone new. The house, once a hollow echo of my mother's presence, began to reflect me instead. I swept the floors every morning not out of fear she'd yell at me, but because I liked the feeling of control. I washed my clothes, fixed broken things, organized shelves, and found comfort in routines I created myself, not ones forced on me. I even repaired the old radio that hadn't worked for years. When the static faded and music finally crackled through the speakers, I almost smiled. Almost. At school, kids still laughed, teachers still lectured, and life went on as if nothing strange was happening. But I moved through the halls differently now. Not hunched, not quiet out of fear, but observant. My teacher, Mrs. Carter, still watched me closely, but I made sure to eat something before school every day, even if it was just half a sandwich a neighbor gave me as payment. I looked less desperate. Less empty. More steady. With each small repair job I did around the neighborhood, more people started noticing me. That helpful kid. Such a smart boy. Your parents must be proud. Parents. The word always hit me like a small punch. But I didn't correct them. I didn't explain that I'd been living alone for nearly a month, surviving on scraps, secrets, and stubbornness. Instead, I saved every dollar I earned. Coins jingled in the glass jar under my bed. My own little lifeline. The money wasn't much, but it was mine. Not part of the plan. Not something stolen from a hidden box. I built it myself. But even as I changed on the outside, the letter burned in my mind. The words replayed constantly. You can't erase me from his life. You can't hide the truth forever. I tried to pretend I didn't care. Tried to ignore the knot of unease twisting in my chest. But every night I found myself returning to my mom's locked room, not to open it, but to stare at the door, wondering what else she had hidden. Wondering who wrote that letter. Wondering why she left me so easily if she'd fought so hard to keep me from someone else. And then there was the woman, the stranger who had warned me. Do not believe the first thing she tells you. Those words clung to me like a shadow. The more I grew stronger, the more I understood something important. This wasn't just neglect. This wasn't just a careless mother taking a vacation. There was a story beneath our house, beneath her silence, beneath that locked room. One my mother had spent years building, hiding, protecting. And when she came back, she would learn that I wasn't the same child she abandoned. Not anymore. I wasn't expecting her that morning. There had been no text, no warning, no flight information. I was in the kitchen boiling water for oatmeal, the kind my neighbor gave me as payment the day before, when I heard a car door slam outside. At first I thought it was a delivery. Or maybe the neighbor's gardener again. But then came the sound I hadn't heard in almost a month. The jingle of her house keys. My heart stopped. I didn't run to the window. I didn't hide. I didn't even move. I just listened as the front door unlocked, the hinges groaning softly from days without use. The door opened, letting in a stream of cold air and the faint smell of unfamiliar perfume. Then her suitcase wheels rolled across the entryway floor. Hello, she called out, her voice bright at first, too bright. I'm home. I didn't answer. And then I heard it. A sudden pause. A sharp inhale. The unmistakable sound of someone's world shifting without warning. Dabu, what happened? She whispered. She wasn't asking anyone. She was talking to herself. I stepped quietly toward the living room, staying just out of sight behind the doorway. My mother stood frozen in the middle of the room, eyes wide, suitcase still half-tipped behind her. She scanned the space slowly, her expression tightening with every detail. The house wasn't the disaster she expected. It was clean, organized, peaceful. The floors were swept. The trash emptied. The curtains washed. Her dusty shelves wiped down. Everything she had neglected, I had taken care of. But that wasn't what made her face lose its color. No, what shook her was me. I stepped into view. I looked different. Thinner, yes, but stronger. My posture wasn't the small, timid shape she had left behind. My eyes weren't afraid. My clothes were mended. My hands steady. She dropped her purse. "Honey," she breathed, what did you do?" He said it like I'd committed a crime. Like becoming self-sufficient was the worst thing that could have happened. "I took care of myself," I said simply. She stared at me, but her eyes weren't filled with concern. They were filled with something else entirely, something cold, something calculating. "No," she muttered. This isn't right." I frowned. "What isn't right?" She shook her head, stepping deeper into the living room as if the air itself felt wrong. Her gaze darted around like she was searching for evidence of a disaster she had expected, needed, to find. Then she whispered the words that made my blood run cold. "This can't be happening. Not now. Not like this." As if my survival, my strength, my independence, had ruined a plan she had carefully prepared. She lifted her eyes to mine, and for the first time in my life, I saw my mother afraid. Not of danger. Not of me. But of what my existence, my growth, my strength meant for whatever secret she was hiding. And I realized something. Her return wasn't the ending. It was the beginning. For a long moment, neither of us moved. My mother stood in the center of the living room, breathing too quickly, eyes darting from me to the spotless shelves to the empty trash bin. It was as if she were searching for proof that everything she believed about me, everything she needed to believe, was still true. But the house was clean. I was standing tall. And her plan, whatever it had been, was unraveling before her eyes. She swallowed hard. "Okay," she said finally, forcing a trembling smile. "Tell me what happened while I was gone. Did someone come stay with you?" "No." "Did you go stay with someone else?" "No." Her smile faltered. "Then how did you?" "I managed," I said simply. "Managed." The word cracked something inside her. She flinched like I'd struck her. "Managed," she repeated slowly, stepping toward me. "Honey, you're 11. Children don't manage on their own. That's impossible." "It wasn't impossible," I replied. "It was just what I had to do." She stared at me stunned. And then her expression hardened. Just a shift, a tightening of her jaw, a narrowing of her eyes, but it was enough. The fear she felt wasn't for me. It was for herself. "So," she said carefully, her voice dipping into that icy tone I knew too well, "tell me exactly what you did while I was away." I didn't trust her. Not after a month alone. Not after the letter. Not after the stranger's warning. But something in me needed the truth, and this was my chance. "I cleaned the house. I fixed things. I earned money helping neighbors." "You earned money?" she repeated sharply. "How much?" I shrugged. "Enough." Her gaze sharpened even more, as if every word I spoke threatened something she was hiding. Then I decided to push. "I also went into your room." The color drained from her face immediately. You what?" she whispered. "The door opened during the storm," I said. "I didn't break anything. I just looked around." She froze. Her breathing stilled. Her hands clenched at her sides. "What did you see?" she asked quietly. "Boxes," I answered. "Money. And a letter." Her entire body went rigid. For the first time ever I saw her mask slip. Not anger. Not disappointment. But fear. Deep fear. "What letter?" she demanded, voice suddenly sharp. "One hidden under your floorboard." She swayed slightly, steadied herself against the wall. "What did it say?" Her voice was a whisper. "It said you can't erase someone from my life," I replied. "And that I deserve to know the truth." She shut her eyes as if the words physically hurt her. When she opened them again, there was no mask left. No fake smile. No pretend warmth. Just raw panic. "Listen to me," she said, stepping closer, lowering her voice. "Whatever you think you know, whatever you think that letter means, it's not true. None of it is true." The stranger's warning echoed through my mind. "Do not believe the first thing she tells you." I held her gaze. "I want the truth," I said quietly. "All of it." She exhaled shakily. And then, finally, she began to break. She didn't speak at first. She just stared at me, really stared, as if seeing me for the first time in her life. Not as a child she could control, Not as a helpless responsibility she could push aside, but as someone capable of tearing down the walls she'd spent years building. Her voice shook when she finally spoke. You weren't supposed to find that letter. I didn't reply. I let the silence pressure her, squeeze the truth out of her like water from stone. She ran a trembling hand through her hair. I left because I needed time. Time to think. Time to figure out what to do. What to do about what? I asked. She let out a shaky laugh, one that had no humor in it. About him. The room felt colder. The person who wrote the letter? I pressed. She nodded slowly. Your father. The word hit me like a blow. I knew I had a father, of course, everyone does, but he was a ghost in our home. A name never spoken. A story never told. I assumed he'd left. Or died. Or disappeared the way my mother often wished people would. You told me he didn't want me, I said quietly. She closed her eyes. I said what I had to. No, you said he never tried to see me. Her jaw tightened. Because that's what I needed you to believe. My stomach twisted. Why? She suddenly turned away, pacing the room in short, sharp steps. Your father wanted custody. Years ago. He filed paperwork. He wrote letters. He tried to meet you. But I couldn't let that happen. Not after everything he did. I swallowed hard. What did he do? He stopped pacing. Her shoulders stiffened. He left me. He abandoned us. He made promises he couldn't keep. I wasn't going to let him walk back in and pretend to be a hero. I searched her face. Something didn't add up. The letter didn't sound like it came from someone who abandoned me. It doesn't matter how it sounded, she snapped. He was manipulating you. Manipulating me. That's what he's always done. Anger sharpened her features. But beneath the anger was something else. Fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing the version of the story she'd repeated so many times she'd convinced herself it was true. Is that why you hid him from me? I asked. Why you kept everything secret? She looked away. Is that why you left me here alone? My voice cracked. So you could figure out how to keep hiding him. Tears filled her eyes, but they weren't the soft kind. They were frustrated, frantic, desperate. You don't understand, she whispered. If he finds out how well you did without him, if he sees you're strong, he'll try again. He'll come back. And I can't let that happen. My chest tightened. This wasn't about protecting me. This was about protecting her story. Her control. Her version of the truth. Her fear of losing me to the person she had erased from my life. And suddenly the month alone made terrible sense. She didn't leave because she trusted me. She left because she didn't want him to find me. That night I barely slept. My mother's confession churned inside me like a storm that refused to settle. She had hidden my father. Lied about him. Buried any trace of him beneath floorboards in silence. And still, none of it explained the stranger who had warned me weeks earlier. The woman who somehow knew everything. The woman who said, not again. Her face haunted me more than my mother's lies. The next morning I stepped outside to take out the trash. An old habit I'd built during the month alone. The air was cool, the sky soft with early light. I was halfway down the driveway when I saw her. Standing across the street. Just like the first time. Same dark coat. Same still posture. Same piercing eyes that felt like they could see through walls. This time, she didn't wait for me to notice her. She crossed the street. Slowly. Carefully. As if approaching a frightened animal. My heart pounded, but I didn't run. Not this time. I felt older, heavier, armed with questions that demanded answers. She stopped a few feet away. Close enough to speak quietly, far enough to give me room to breathe. You found the letter, she said softly. A chill wrapped around my spine. How do you know about that? Her eyes filled with something like sorrow. Because I wrote it. My breath caught. You're the one my mother hid. I'm not the only one she hid, she replied gently. But yes, I'm the one who tried to see you. I'm the one she kept away. I swallowed hard. Who are you? She looked at me for a long moment before answering. I'm your aunt. My chest tightened. My father's sister? She nodded. Your father didn't leave you. He didn't abandon you. He fought harder than you'll ever know to be in your life. Her voice cracked. But your mother made sure he never stood a chance. My stomach twisted. My mother's words, sharp, accusatory, flashed through my mind. She said he was manipulative. The woman shook her head. He was kind. Too kind. He thought she'd eventually do the right thing. He believed patience would fix things. And did it? Her eyes darkened. No. It broke him. And when he tried again years later, she threatened to disappear. Permanently. Leave the state. Change your name. Anything to erase him. A cold wind cut between us. Why are you here? I whispered. Because she left you alone, she said. Because you deserve the truth. Because your father still thinks of you every day. My throat tightened. Where is he now? She hesitated just for a moment. And then she said the words that changed everything. He's coming back. Her words echoed inside me like a bell struck too hard. He's coming back. For a moment, everything felt unreal. The driveway, the cold morning air, the faint hum of traffic in the distance. I stared at her, my aunt, this stranger who somehow felt more honest in 10 minutes than my mother had in 11 years. When? Finally asked. Soon, she said. He's been searching for you again. Your mother's trip gave him an opening. When she left, he found out. My heart twisted. So that's why she left me alone. Yes, my aunt whispered. She wanted to leave quietly before he had a chance to find you. She didn't expect you to survive this well. She didn't expect you to change. I looked down at my hands. The same hands that had fixed toys, cleaned the house, held hunger at bay. For the first time, I realized their strength wasn't accidental. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't the helpless child my mother needed me to be. What will she do when she finds out he's coming? I asked. My aunt's expression darkened. She'll fight. He always fights. And she will try to convince you that he's the enemy. She'll twist stories. Rewrite history. She'll do anything to keep control. A familiar ache tightened in my chest. My mother's first reaction when she returned. The panic, the disbelief, the way she whispered, "This can't be happening." She had been reacting to me. To my strife. To the possibility of losing the power she held over my life. I took a shaky breath. What am I supposed to do? My aunt stepped closer, lowering her voice to a gentle softness I wasn't used to. You decide who you want to be. Not who she tells you to be. Not who she built her plans around. You. Her words struck deeper than she knew. Because for the first time I had a choice. I could keep pretending. Keep obeying. Keep living inside the story my mother created. Or I could step out. Tell the truth. Break the cycle she had wrapped around me since birth. A feather-light breeze brushed against us, shifting the leaves on the ground. Small, but enough to make me feel the weight of the moment. I lifted my head. If he comes, I said quietly, I want to hear his side. I want to know the truth. All of it. My aunt's eyes softened, relief, pride, sadness all blending together. That, she said, is the first real choice you've ever made for yourself. And in that moment I understood something. The month my mother abandoned me had built the version of me brave enough to finally question her. The next step, the most important one, was coming. And nothing would ever be the same again. A year can change almost nothing, or it can change everything. For me it was the latter. It didn't happen overnight. Truth rarely arrives all at once. It comes in fragments, in conversations whispered in kitchens, in documents dug out of filing cabinets, in quiet moments when you finally let yourself face memories you've avoided your whole life. My father did come back. Not dramatically. Not with anger or accusations. He knocked on our door one afternoon in late spring, holding nothing but a folder of legal papers and a photograph of me as a toddler, one I'd never seen before. My mother tried to slam the door in his face. But I stepped between them. I want to talk to him, I said. My voice didn't shake. She stared at me like I was a stranger. In that moment I realized I was someone new, someone she could no longer predict or control. The weeks that followed were messy. Emotional. Confusing. My father told me his side, about court filings my mother hid, visitation schedules she ignored, letters returned unopened. He never spoke badly of her, not once. He simply told the truth and let me understand it at my own pace. My mother, on the other hand, shifted between fury and desperation. She wanted to rewrite everything again, to pull me back into her version of events. But once you learn someone is willing to bury the truth, you start digging deeper. By autumn I made my decision. I moved in with my father. Not because he was perfect. Not because everything suddenly made sense. But because he told the truth even when it hurt. And because he never once tried to manipulate the story of my life. Therapists call it finding stability. I call it learning to breathe again. My aunt visited often. She brought photographs, stories, small bits of family history my mother had tried to erase. She cried when she saw how different I had become. Taller, stronger, more certain of myself. And my mother? Some people expect redemption arcs. Sudden apologies. Tears. Change. But real life is messy. She didn't change overnight. She pulled back from my life slowly, as if disappearing into the same silence she once trapped me in. She sends cards sometimes, short messages without real emotion. I don't hate her. But I no longer belong to the world she built out of fear and control. Does that month? The month she left me with $2. Taught me something she never intended. I am capable. I am resilient. I am not defined by her choices. Today my room is filled with things I built myself. Fixed radios, mended bicycles, small tools lined neatly on shelves. I like helping people. It reminds me of the boy I was back then, trying to hold himself together one repair at a time. When I look in the mirror now, I don't see the scared kid left behind. I see the person he became. And for the first time in my life. That's enough. More than enough.